Good morning, everybody. Smiley here. It's Tuesday. It's just gone 10 o'clock. How you all doing? Hope you're well. Today I want to talk to you about meltdowns. So we'll just see if anyone's around to come and join us. And while we are, we'll talk about, did anyone have yellow stormy skies yesterday? Quite appropriate for talking about meltdowns. The sky was yellow yesterday. It went yellow and really dark, like it was going to rain. I think it was the storms, but don't know if anyone else had the yellow sky. Hi Emma, hi, thanks for being here. If you want to come on in and say hello and introduce yourself, that's great. Yeah, so hi Julia. So sepia tone, yeah, it was like sepia tones or sepia tone tone skies. Everywhere was like yellow and dark. It was quite eerie and the energy felt quite intense, and this felt like the storm needed to break. I didn't see the pink sun, but I saw somebody put a photo of the pink sun on Facebook, and it was beautiful, wasn't it? It was really, really beautiful. So off the back of my lives about your strong-willed sensitive child, I want to talk to you today about meltdowns, because you're going to get a lot of meltdowns with those kids because they are emotional people. So I don't know if you saw my drawing that I drew of my wild heart child. So I drew this yesterday, showing off. I'm not the best drawer in the world, but I love drawing. I used to love doing this as a kid. As you can see with my strong-willed sensitive child, can you see sensitive feeling and then all those feelings coming out here? And then there's an umbrella for protection. It might be back to front on here. And then this is their intuition coming out the front, and their curious mind, don't like rules. And their energy is quite powerful, light over dark. They value freedom, peace and calm. They like to be connected to nature, and they need to be themselves. So that was, I drew that yesterday because I was trying to get really clear in my mind what it is. And I don't want to label children because I think we put people in boxes when we label them. But what I'm trying to do is give these children an identity that they can relate to, or adults who are like that. Because I feel like when we can relate to something, it's validating for us, because being that type of person, being a wild heart, can feel lonely, and you can feel like a weirdo and that you don't really fit in. You need lots of alone time to recharge, and you think, does anyone else spend this much time on their own? So it's quite important. It's quite important that we're not labeling, we're just giving an identity to that type of person. And I'd like to create like a club or a crew or a place for the wild hearts to hang out, so that they feel accepted and they feel like they belong. Because we're all have that as a basic human need, to belong somewhere. A feeling like you don't belong is horrible, isn't it? So what have I got on my... Let me just have a look at my list of things that I put down today. So when you get a meltdown from a strong-willed sensitive child, you will find that... you might go along for a few days and they'll be okay, and then all of a sudden you'll get a massive explosion. Or you might have mini explosions every day. I think it depends on how old they are and how able they are to regulate their feelings. So little children, I'm talking about under the age of 7, will have big feelings, and they will need you to help them manage that process. So that kind of needs you to be a behaviour detective and notice what's going on for them, and to see when you might be seeing behaviour you don't like, but what are the feelings underneath that behaviour? The children have very funny ways of showing us how they feel, and they kind of... The worst behaviour you see, or the behaviour that you like the least, is just a really loud message that says, Mum, I don't like this. I really don't like it. But there's some things that you can do as a parent of a wild heart or a strong or sensitive child to really, really help them. One of those things is to be a witness to their feelings. So I'm in quite a lot of Facebook support groups for one thing or another. Some of them are for work and some of them are personal. And in one of our groups, it's very boundaried. So we have to write at the top of our post what we hope to get out of our post. So lots of people write at the top of their post, I'm writing this to be witnessed. So what they're saying is, I'm looking for validation of how I feel, because I feel a bit lost with my feelings, or I feel like I might have got it wrong, or I'm doubting myself. when we are witnessed by another, like when we're heard and seen as we are in the moment without judgment, our feelings pretty much pass quite quickly. So as parents, we have all manner of ways of invalidating, not seeing and not hearing our children. And this is what my class that I did recently, Listen with Love, was about, was actually being able to see and hear your child. If you were not seen and heard for who you were growing up, so I'm just going to go into this because this was me growing up. So if you were made to feel bad for the way that you felt. So as a lot of you know, I was really angry. So I have a lot of shame around anger. But it's not the shame that says, oh, you did a bad thing, you need to put it right. It's called toxic shame, which means at my core, if I'm triggered, I feel really bad. So sometimes when I come off of here, I get what I call a shame hangover, because you make yourself vulnerable. And when you make yourself vulnerable, if you carry shame, you're really opening yourself up to the world. And then you come away and you think, oh, did I say too much? Now people can really see me, and that's uncomfortable. But children who aren't seen for who they are and aren't properly heard will be approval seekers or people pleasers, or they'll lose themselves in relationships. So if they get into a relationship, they'll have weak emotional boundaries where they won't be able to stay with themselves, especially in a conflict situation. They'll want to make sure the other person's okay. And being seen and being heard for who we are isn't about making them right when they do something that you think is wrong in your mind, because that's the story. That's just the story. And we don't need to worry about the story at all. What we need to worry about is how they feel. So in my Listen with Love class, I'll put the link in below if you want to get it. I'm talking about really listening. And I was quite surprised that lots of people didn't buy that class, because and then it wasn't until a client said to me the other day, I listened to my daughter, and I thought, but listening to respond or listening to fix or listening in that way is not the same as listening with love. To be validating, to be a witness to how somebody feels, to enable them to dissolve their feelings. And that's why I talk about connecting with empathy, and I'll move on to that in a minute. But bearing witness and seeing someone as they are and hearing what they've got to say is so important. It says, I see you as you are, and you're okay as you are, and I'm reflecting that back to you. Because otherwise, if we pass judgment or make them wrong, especially if we make them wrong for how we feel, we're shaming them. And just a quick word about shame. If you were shamed as a child, you will inadvertently pass it on to your kids. It's just unavoidable, because if you have shame, let's think about how I can explain this. If you have shame and you feel bad about who you are, and I only know this as someone who carries toxic shame, I'm a perfectionist. So my inner dialogue is about showing up and being perfect, and I can't be less than perfect, because then that makes me feel ashamed of who I am. I know this sounds really deep and horrible. Don't believe me, I've been working on it for a long time, so I'm fine talking about it. And I'm not doing it for sympathy, but I want to highlight to you how it can affect you. So when you carry shame and you show up and you're less than perfect, you get what I call a shame hangover, and it's shitty. You feel so awful. Then you feel very vulnerable and overwhelmed, and you go and hide away. If your kids are having a meltdown and you're worrying about what everyone else is thinking, that's shame talking. That's saying, it's a kid who doesn't know how to regulate their feelings. It's okay for them to behave like that. And the minute you take your eyes off your child and connect with them in a meltdown situation, and you make it about what other people think, you are disconnected from them, and that's your shame. Then you're shushing your child and pushing and trying to manage their behaviour. Then that's shaming them, because that's saying it's not okay to behave like that in public. Okay, when you're an adult, it's not okay to behave like that in public. But with our children, if we allow them to have their feelings and we let them play out, and okay, maybe if we're in the middle of Sainsbury's or it's not appropriate, you can take them off to the toilet and talk to them and help them with it. You can't ask little children to hold on to their feelings and park them. Some adults can't hold on to their feelings and park them. So we have to be realistic about what we expect of kids. We really do. And what happens is when we shame children for having feelings, and I see this with really angry children, it isn't safe for them to be vulnerable. We also shame them by comparing them to their siblings, or oh, that little girl over there is eating her dinner nicely. Why are you not eating your dinner nicely? okay, probably not eating their dinner nicely for another reason. We don't care what the other little girl's doing. So we have to make sure that we don't shame them for having feelings. Shame is horrible, and you will know if you have it. Mine feels like rocks in my tummy. I was actually writing a blog about it yesterday. Rocks in my tummy, really, really big and heavy. It's not nice. But if you have it, or you're a perfectionist and you feel like you have to show up and present to the world in a certain way, you will inadvertently hand shame over to your children. And shame says, I am wrong, I am bad, this isn't okay, it's not allowed to happen. When you're a little kid and you're full of feelings, of course it is. And it's up to the adults around you to help you manage that in a way that keeps you safe, that keeps everybody else safe. Just telling a child to stop is not going to help them, or to shush them, or to, threaten them. If you carry, that's the ventriloquist act. My mum used to do that. She used to bend down and say, you're showing me up. If you carry on doing that, I'm going to duh. So then that sends a message to my little brain that's really overwhelmed with big feelings and really panicky. That sends a message to my little brain, you're not okay when you do that. This isn't okay to behave like this. So you better stop it right now. Then what happens is, as I grow up as an adult, I have all this shame inside me because I feel bad for having feelings. I disconnect from my feelings and I shove them down with wine, cigarettes, drugs, food. And that's how addiction starts. Addiction is not being seen and heard and accepted the way you are. So the biggest gift you can give your child when a meltdown happens you want to bring it on. You basically want to bring it on. And I'll talk about doing daily maintenance. You can bring on meltdowns every day. You can bring on meltdowns every day so that you don't get this almighty shitstorm, as it were, like the yellow skies that we had yesterday. But you want to bring it on and you want to accept those feelings. So I did a masterclass last week. By the way, guys, the pack from my masterclass for last week is still available online with all the bonuses till Friday. Then it's going into school and into the online learning den, and it won't have the bonuses with it, but it'll still be the same price. So if you want to get that, I'll put the link in below for that. It's got a date on it because I had to make believe that I was doing a class in order for you to be able to pay me. But it's not a live class, it's a recording of the class last week, which teaches you how to set boundaries with empathy. So you don't have to stop your child's emotions, but you don't have to let go of your boundary and back down. So one of the things the mums on that class said to me is, I can set a boundary with my child, but I can't uphold my boundary. And I can't uphold my boundary because I feel shame. I feel embarrassed that everyone's staring at us, or people are going to think, what's going on with that family? Just spat, lovely. So that's something you can learn. So setting with boundaries with empathy, the empathy thing is just saying, I'm on your team, I get it. So when you go and talk to your friend, I was talking to my hairdresser yesterday, and we were talking about how when you take something that is really upsetting you and makes you really vulnerable to a friend, how do you expect them to receive that information? And we were saying, some people are practical and they want to fix and come up with ideas. Some people are good at listening and offering comfort. We all have different ways of listening to our friends. But think about the way I listen to the kids that show up in my coaching room for 50 minutes, like real listening with love, as I call it in the course. Active listening is holding the space for them and seeing them as they are in the moment. I'm not a parent, so I'm not projecting all my fears onto them and thinking, you hit him, you're going to end up in a ball store and be a mass murderer. That I don't have any of that stuff going on. I am literally just listening to that child. I am with them in the room, eyes on them. I'm not distracted by anything else in the room, and I'm nodding and I'm smiling. Now, to listen like that all the time is knackering, I'll be honest with you, but I'm trained to listen like that. I'm also listening to what they're not telling me. And that's really important in a meltdown situation. Like, you have to be a detective. Don't take the behaviour at face value. Think about, are they hungry, angry, lonely, tired? What sort of a day have they had? If they've been at school all day, you're not going to know. But if they started to act out when they got home, that would suggest to me that something bad had happened at school and they've got some feelings in their backpacks that they need to unload. So bearing witness, accepting the feelings as they are, and being able to set boundaries with empathy. So you don't move your boundaries, but you have empathy for your child's feelings, which is you encourage the feelings to come, you bring it on. Come on. And if they're angry, you want to get them to cry. That sounds mean, doesn't it? But we normally work through our feelings. So we start off by being really angry, and then I'm getting loads of notifications on my phone. That's why I'm doing that. They start off by being angry, and as we validate and bear witness and see them as they are, they then move through to and then it's crying, or it's I'm scared, because underneath anger are much softer feelings. But children who are angry do not feel safe enough to share their vulnerable feelings with you. And that's probably because it's not being role modelled by the adults around them, or that's probably because they're not feeling safe enough to do it, or they feel like they're being judged, or they're being shamed for how they feel. Nobody is consciously doing that. I'm not making anyone wrong. I'm just explaining to you how that works, because I want us to stop shaming children. Shame is the cause of addiction. And I don't know if any of you know Brené Brown. Thumbs up if you have. Brené Brown does a really amazing TED Talk. In fact, I'll get the link and put it in below, about shame. And she says shame cannot survive if you share it and it's received with empathy. Me too. So if I come to you and I tell you a story about something really bad that happens to me, and you say to me, oh my God, Lise, that must have been so hard for you. That's awful, Tumbleweed. I've shared my story, I've exposed it, it's been witnessed, you've seen me as I am, you've not made me wrong, you've heard me, and my shame starts to dissolve. Now, just to give you some idea of the level of toxic shame I carry, I've been in therapy for 17 years. And I'm still working on that. I get shamed easily. And yet and this is why I think I'm a wild heart, like the kids I describe in here. I still show up and share my stuff with you, because I do believe somewhere deep down inside, beyond all my shame, that by sharing it with you, I'm going to make it okay for you as well. And I'm going to say, I've got that as well. Me too. Empathy. I get it. I understand how you feel. I don't know how I'm going to feel when I get off of here today. Has anyone got any questions so far? So they're the things in a meltdown situation. You want to bring it on. You want to set boundaries with empathy. So by that, I mean, say something like, oh, Poppet, you're really angry. I'm not going to let you hurt me. So I'm going to go and stand over here if you're going to carry on kicking. Or you redirect them and you say, it's not okay to kick me, but you can kick this pillow, or you can jump up and down over there. Give them choices. Strong-willed sensitive children don't really like being told what to do, which makes it tricky if you're an authoritarian parent, because you're going to be met with lots of power struggles. So going back to the whole daily maintenance thing, and this is kind of what I'm going to be teaching the kids on my Calm Down class in the half term. It's next Wednesday. And if you got my newsletter on Monday, you will have got a code for £10 off. And now I'm thinking, what's the code? I think it's Smiley 10. So if you go and book the class, you get £10 off. But I'm going to teach the kids that they carry an emotional backpack and feelings build up in them. And because they are this sensitive child that's picking up on everyone else's feelings, I'm going to teach them how to protect their energy, how to ground their energy. And then I'm going to teach them some coping strategies, which have helped me. So it will be a mixture of EFT. I'm going to teach them tapping. I'm going to teach them some yoga stuff that I know. I'm going to teach them some Kundalini yoga breathing techniques. I'm also going to teach them some fun stuff to do to shake their feelings out, to get those feelings out of their bodies. If you've got a strong-willed sensitive child, they do need to do daily maintenance. They need to, on a daily basis, talk out, work through, shake down, find a channel or a way to express their feelings. Otherwise, their backpack gets full, and this is where you start to see an explosive child. And if you feel like you're walking around on eggshells with this child, okay, that's a sign that your boundaries are weak. You cannot be worried about upsetting your child by setting a boundary, because if you do that, you're not actually keeping them safe, and they won't learn to hear the word no, and they probably won't be able to say it. So don't be afraid of your child's response. And if you are afraid of your child's meltdowns and the magnitude of them and the fact they're going to kick off, and I hear this quite a lot with some of the mums that I work with that have got adopted children, but that's because they've got an attachment disorder. They're not attached to the mummy that they grew from, in the belly that they grew from. So I see your question. I'm coming back to the chat roll. When they're insecurely attached, then they have rage. But, you know, I'd have rage if the mummy who grew me in her tummy gave me away for whatever reason. You know, I'm not judging that mummy, but I'm saying, because you would spend your whole life searching for that missing piece of you. You would feel that lack of connection. And that's why I wrote the ebook, that 30-day mini training, to help you get that emotional connection with your kids, because that is what plugs them into the ground. That is what keeps them safe and solid and feel comfortable in their bodies. I've also written 2 blog posts, which I'm going to put in here afterwards, about how to deal with meltdowns and preventative maintenance, which is just making sure every day that they've got the tools to be able to deal with it. So I've got a question here. Oh, just quickly before I answer the question. So what I was saying was, if you are afraid of your child's response, if you're afraid of the meltdowns, you're being triggered, and you need to look at that. On my boundaries workshop, there's 3 questions you need to ask yourself, because it's an old wound. Your child didn't create that button that's being pressed. You know, like when I get shamed now, I don't go, oh, you're not being very nice to me, to that person. I can go within and do self-reflection and say, this feels like shame. What's going on for me? Why am I feeling like this? Oh, this is like the time when blah, blah, blah happened. You know, and then you can unpick it. But you've got to know your triggers, and it's really important. So how to deal with fear of failure. My son doesn't want to try. Yeah, because he's afraid of getting it wrong. So I don't know how you role model making mistakes, and that's about apologizing, about mopping up. So instead of blaming, finger pointing, it's about how can we repair? How can we make that situation better? We don't actually need to punish children when they do something wrong, because there is there's that shame thing inside of them. But there's a normal level of shame, which is, I don't like the word normal, but I can't think of another word. But there is a level of shame which is triggered in us, which says to us, that's like our moral compass that says, that didn't feel very good to do that, or I'm not going to do that again. How can I make it better? So I see in a lot of, and I think parents feel like they have to make children accountable for when they do things wrong, because then they won't do it again. But actually we don't need to make them accountable. We just need to role model accountability and making mistakes. What we need to focus on when something goes wrong. So if I was listening with love and your child came to me and they'd done something wrong, and again, the listen with love is good, because you have to create an environment that's conducive to sharing. So what's your response when your child comes to you with something they've done wrong or they've got a problem? Do you then take on the drama of that problem? Do you make it your problem? How do you respond to it? Poker face. Okay, I'm hearing that. So it didn't go the way you wanted to at school today. So you hit him. You must have been really mad to do that. What was going on for you? Just sharing, not making wrong, asking questions, finding out what's going wrong for them, and then saying, so how did that feel? Feels bad. Where did it feel bad? Feels bad in your tummy. Okay. Wow, how big is it? Oh, it's a really big bad feeling. Okay, so what do you want to do about that? And your child, once they've moved through the big bad feeling, will then go, well, I'd quite like to write him a card, or I'd quite like to say I'm sorry, or I'd like to say sorry to the teacher, or... But when a child feels like they're being made wrong all the time, so critical, perfectionist, I'm not saying that you are this person, I'm just talking through the things I know that cause that scaredy feeling of feeling like they have to achieve. In fact, I was talking to a mum this morning about her daughter who feels an underlying pressure to succeed. She's at quite a high profile school. But then she said in the conversation, but we've said to her that if she doesn't stick to her part of the bargain, she won't be able to go to the private school. She'll have to go to the state school. And it's like, oh, that's quite a big pressure. And I kind of highlighted that to her, and she said, oh yeah, I didn't realise that we'd done that. So you've got to think about how, and sometimes that's why you need a third party to unpack it, because there's dynamics and things that get played out in families all the time, and we're not aware of our triggers which are below the surface. Pavlina, does that help you at all? Is that helping you? Because all you can do is make it okay to try, but Children who want to be perfectionists and have to get everything right and be in control and have things a certain way will not want to fail. And maybe that's because when they have failed or they have got it wrong, what have been the consequences of that? And I see children that are punished and parented in the old style way actually have a lot of shame, and they are scared of being imperfect. But none of us are perfect. None of us are. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's quite an icky subject, but I want to talk more about shame because obviously shame can't survive if we talk about it, but also because I don't want us to pass it on to our kids. I really don't want us to. I don't think we realise that's what we're doing. Shame is like a hot potato. That's how I explain it to people. When you catch it, your automatic reaction is to want to go "Ugh!" with it because it feels so horrible. Horrible. And then I suppose the other antidote to shame is why I've made my kindness kit, because it's about having self-forgiveness, self-compassion and being kind to yourself. So if you are a perfectionist and you are a critical on yourself, I remember speaking to a mum, well, it was probably about 6 weeks ago now, and she said, how can I help my son? He's this, that and the other. He's afraid of failure. And I said to her, are you a perfectionist? And she said, yeah, I am. But I don't think I am with the kids. And you can't hide it. It leaks out in your behaviour. Like, this is why we can't hide stuff from children, especially the wild heart, the sensitive children, because they've got this radar. Can you see the radar? And they pick it up. They pick it up and they internalise it sometimes in the wrong way. If their little brains aren't old enough to make sense of the story in the right way. And that's why it's really important in families that we talk a lot, that we talk and we explain why things happen. We don't. I saw a thing on the TV the other day about, you know, should we, our grandpa's dying, should we talk to our children? We're not telling our son because he's really sensitive and he gets really upset and he's really close to his grandpa. Okay, but when his grandpa actually dies, then he's going to be sad and upset anyway, depending on how old the child is. Age appropriately, you can talk to the child about what's happening to grandpa's body and the fact that it's not working properly anymore, and we need to spend more time with grandpa because he might be going to heaven, or whatever your beliefs are about dying. Children they take things at face value. They're very literal, and they can actually compute. Keep it age appropriate. You don't need to talk about cancer or, you know, just granddad's body has stopped working. And don't protect them from having their feelings, because what happens is they either feel they don't have a right to have those feelings, or those feelings build up inside of them, and that doesn't help them. It doesn't help them in the long run. We think we're being kind and saving them, but we're not making them emotionally resilient. We're not equipping them for life. So yeah. And the other thing I want to say is, because a mum said to me the other day, I really want my child to come on your half-term calm down course, but how the hell am I going to get my kid to come? Okay, here's the thing. Children are not going to want to come on things if you're not comfortable about them. So you have to look at the energy that you're putting onto the thing that you want to get them to do. If you're confident about doing it, and if your energy is positive and high and upbeat, they'll just follow your lead. Unless your connection's not very good and they're locked into a power struggle with you. So what I think is really important, especially with the calm down one, and it's not a calm down class just for angry, it's for any strong or sensitive child that's being overwhelmed by all the feelings and picking up on all the things that are going on around them. So they might be overwhelmed with sadness, they might be overwhelmed with anxiety and worries, they might be overwhelmed with frustration or anger. Okay, so make it a family affair. And I'm getting more and more along the lines of making it a family affair, because and this is why I stopped coaching younger children, because a lot of young kids were rocking up at my coaching room furious, and their mums and dads were screaming blue murder at them. So what do you expect? It's just like, you can't tell your child not to be angry when you're not in control of your anger. Are you going to go and look at your anger? So I'm saying, if I was a mum in a family and I've got a temper because of the way I brought up and because of my temperament, and I do anger really easily, but actually I've got lots of soft, vulnerable feelings underneath that I that I'm still uncomfortable sharing because of my shame that I've talked about earlier. So I would say, do you know what, kids? There's this video and there's this workbook, and I've noticed that I'm getting really stressy with you guys lately. I don't want to do that. So this lady is going to teach us some fun stuff to help us, and that means that I'm going to be a less stressy mummy, and that will help you guys with how you feel, and we can all take what we need from it and do it as a family. Sit down in front of the iPad, print the worksheets off, and crack on and do it. And you get a lovely little download that comes with it, and then you'll have like a family set of goals afterwards where you can say, oh, Johnny needs to do tapping when he gets frustrated about his homework, Daddy needs to do some breathing when he comes in from work and it's bath time and everything's a bit mad. He needs to do that in the car on the way home so he can park his day and come in and be with us. Mummy needs to, so then you'll all have. And I talk to the children about their emotions being energy. So it's really empowering for those kids to know that all of the feelings they feel flooded with are okay, and everyone else in the family is dealing with it, and we're going to find a way as a family to deal with it. We're not going to finger point at one kid and say, you're the angry kid, so therefore you need help. Because that's not very fair, because then you've got another kid who's got a different temperament, who's not acting out, but then that kid might be suppressing all their feelings and thinking, well, there's no space for me to have feelings because this other child here's feelings are so big. I reckon that's what it was like for my three sisters, because I was always acting out and being sent to my bedroom, and they were thinking, God, look at Mum, she's really knackered having to deal with Lisa. I'm not going to pipe up because, poor old Mum, she can't cope. Do you see what I mean? So make it a family affair and think about how you can positively present it to your child. Come along to the class. You don't have to contribute to the class. You don't have to. You can log on as Maureen or Glinda or whatever and pretend to be someone else. In fact, I think you can just put iPad or iPhone and you can just watch the class and get involved. It's a 60-minute class, but the boundary class that I did the other night for the mums was 90 minutes. And we ended up burning the midnight oil. We stayed up for 2 hours. So, because I'm there with you and I kind of want to help you as much as I can. So, and you can ask me questions. You can ask me anything. And you can ask me afterwards if you don't want to ask in the live course. You're welcome, don't worry. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to go now soon because I've been online for ages. I get caught up in the moment and think I've got to say this and I've got to say it. But I'm going to post all the links for the things I've talked about below for the rest of you. So the 2 blogs on dealing with meltdowns, the link to the pack, the boundaries pack, which is still available with the bonuses till the end of this week, and then also the calm down class for the kids next Wednesday, which is going to be great fun. And if you make big feelings fun, that changes the energy of them. It's much lighter and brighter, isn't it, than this big unmanageable. We don't want children growing up scared of their feelings, because again, they will push them down. All right, I hope that's helpful. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see some of you next Wednesday. It will be really, and the Brené Brown talk on shame for sure. Thank you, Julia. Yes, I'll make a note of that. And thank you for being here, and I hope to see some of you next Wednesday, because it's going to be great. And remember, next week I'm doing my Reminder to Be Kinder fun half-term activities. So drawing stuff, competitions, chances to win prizes. So hopefully I'll see you at some point over half-term. All right, take care. Bye. Have a nice day. Bye. Bye.